Hello everybody, my name is Tommy and welcome back to my channel. We are going to be doing something a little bit different today. Today we're going to look at a movie that came out in the year 2000. What movie am I talking about? The Cell. If you've seen this movie, you know what I'm talking about. If not, just sit tight. Yeah, this movie scared the hell out of me when I was a kid, and funny enough, it actually gained a spot as one of my favorite movies. But here's the thing, I haven't actually seen this movie in a very, very long time. How long has it been? I had this movie on DVD, and the last time I remember watching it, I remember actually like putting the physical disc inside of a DVD player, like a standalone DVD player. The last time I had a DVD player like that was probably like, what, 10 years ago? Okay, so we're gonna assume that I haven't seen this movie in roughly 10 years. 10 years at least. And now, even though it's been a very long time, I still consider this movie to be one of my favorite movies. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm going to try to give you a synopsis of this movie from memory. Then from there, we're going to actually watch the movie, and then I'm going to give you an actual proper rundown of the movie. We can see how off the first synopsis is going to be. And more importantly, we're going to see if this movie is still good. Okay, so from what I remember, this movie is about a team of scientists who are doing research into lucid dreaming. I don't remember why, but I think they were looking for alternative ways to deliver therapy through people's dreams. Something like that. But there's also a serial killer who's on the loose. And this killer has a thing for drowning his victims. And just recently, kidnapped a new victim. Now, the police investigate and actually manage to find the killer's location, but something happens and somehow the killer ends up in a coma. I think he was suffering from like seizures or something, and then like tripped and hit his head. I don't know, but he somehow ends up in a coma. But oh no, that girl that he kidnapped is still missing and nobody knows where she is. So Vince Vaughn is the lead investigator in this movie. And fucking J-Lo is the lead researcher. Yeah, Jennifer Lopez, right? What a cast. So yeah, Vince Vaughn and his team bring the serial killer to the dreaming facility to see if they can infiltrate the killer's mind to see if there's any clues as to where he has his last victim. But things don't go as planned because this guy's mind is like very fucked up. So I think J-Lo enters the mind of the serial killer, and because things are just completely fucked up and this guy's so damaged that she ends up getting caught in his mind and can't escape. So Vince Vaughn has to enter the dream to try and save her. Sounds about right. But like while they're in his mind, they're just like witnessing all the chaos, all the trauma, all the pain just unfolds before their eyes. And I think they start to like get a glimpse as to why the killer is the way that he is. But long story short, they manage to find the clues that they need. And then yay, they manage to find the last victim before she dies. And everyone lives happily ever after. Except for the killer, obviously. He dies in his dreams. So if I remember correctly, if you die in your dreams, you die in real life. Sounds about right. Pretty sure J-Lo's the one who kills him. I don't remember exactly, but I remember it being like a pretty sad ending. But it's okay. First off, I'm sure that description was just a complete disaster and either got everything wrong or the majority of the content wrong, or even just left out some pretty important things. We're gonna actually watch the movie and then I'll give you a proper rundown. So let's not waste any more time. Let's go watch this thing. Okay, so I'm back. It's been a couple days, but here I am. And of course, I got a lot of things wrong from that first synopsis that I just did from memory. So what I'm going to do now is give you an actual synopsis now that I've just seen the movie. Catherine Dean is a child psychologist and social worker who is an expert in an experimental treatment for individuals who are in a coma. This experimental treatment is some kind of virtual reality device that allows her to enter the minds of individuals who are in a coma or in a vegetative state in an attempt to bring them back into consciousness. Specifically, a neurological cartography and synaptic transfer system. She seems to be making progress with her current patient, whose name is Edward, but the issue is that there's no outward signs of improvement. Only Catherine and Edward know what's going on. So Edward's parents start believing that these improvements are nothing more than a delusion that Catherine is having.
There's no proof, Catherine. There's no proof the procedure works. All you're giving me is the belief that your interaction with my son is not a hallucination.
This project was actually funded by Edward's parents. That's why it was such a big disappointment when his parents wanted to pull him out of the program. Now, on the other side of things, far away from this research facility, is an individual named Carl Starger. Carl is a serial killer, and we see him performing some kind of ritual on the body of his latest victim. Carl had a whole bunch of metal rings pierced throughout his entire body, to which he used to suspend himself. He stalks these young women, kidnaps them, tortures, and drowns them. Once they're dead, Carl will bleach their bodies until they are completely white. After the bleaching process, he attaches a collar around their neck to show some type of ownership over the corpses. Another step in Carl's ritual is to hoist himself up from these metal rings. Once he's suspended, he proceeds to watch the footage of his victims drowning. It looks like he's doing something a little more than watching right here. Dirty, dirty Carl. He's turning these corpses into his personal dolls. and Carl has already found his next victim. Her name is Julia Hickson. Carl kidnaps her by using his dog as a prop. He places a brick behind the wheel of her car, so when she reverses, she hits the brick. And when she looks back to see what she hit, she sees a dog. She thinks she just hit the dog, so she goes out to see if he's okay. But as she's checking on the dog, Carl comes out from behind the shadows, attacks her, and kidnaps her. We are also introduced to a group of detectives who are working on this case. Peter Novak and Gordon Ramsay. That's right, you heard me. Gordon Ramsay.
Where's the lamb sauce?
Not that Gordon Ramsay. That'd be really fucking funny if it was. Holy shit.
You fucking donut!
They end up finding the proper evidence to finally identify the killer. Once the authorities learn the identity of the killer, they track him down and surround his home. But just before they break into his house, Carl, who already suffers from seizures, has a really bad one and falls right into a coma. He is rushed to the hospital, where doctors diagnose him with a rare form of schizophrenia, known as Wayland's infraction. This isn't a real illness, it was made specifically for this movie, but let's suspend our disbelief for a second and just go along with it so we can enjoy the movie. The doctor says that this thing is caused by a virus that affects the neurological system in utero. It lays dormant until it's triggered by some kind of trauma, and because of this condition, he is no longer able to awake from his coma. Now, Julia wakes up to find herself trapped in some kind of glass enclosure. This glass enclosure is specifically designed to fill up with water in small increments. Once a certain amount of time passes, it fills up with a specific amount of water until the room is entirely filled. Now, Carl is in a coma, so there's no way of finding out where Julia is. And the only way they can stop this from happening is to infiltrate Carl's mind and convince him to reveal Julia's location before the tank fills up with water and she drowns. And they have less than 48 hours to do so. Catherine enters Carl's mind, and it's even more sick and twisted than they could have ever imagined. Carl's psyche is so fractured that it manifests itself into two separate entities. The boy version of Carl, who is Carl's childhood innocence, a boy who's too scared to talk and is always hiding, the personification of Carl's innocence. And then we got the king version of Carl, adult Carl's idealized self, the side of him that enjoys torturing and killing, a king who rules his psyche like an evil overlord of a dark and twisted kingdom.
Where you come from?
Turns out, Edward and Carl actually have the same neurological disorder. Carl has his evil side, which we refer to as the king, and Edward has his boogeyman side, known as Mocky-Lock. And it was Mocky-Lock who actually kept disrupting Edward and Catherine's sessions.
Now, Edward, we agreed. No more Mocky-Lock.
Mocky-Lock is the boogeyman.
Edward.
This fucking Snapchat looking motherfucker right here. Now, this part of the movie gets pretty fucking graphic, as we are shown in great detail just how extreme some of this abuse was. Catherine enters Carl's childhood home and sees him washing dishes. She offers to help him. She even gives him a little pocket mirror that he can keep on him, and that every time he wants to find her or reach out to her, all he has to do is reflect the light into her eyes and she'll find him. As she hands it to Carl, a plate drops and shatters. Now, Carl frantically shoves Catherine into the closet because he knows his father is coming. From this point on, we watch from the closet the physical, mental, and even sexual abuse Carl went through.
Did you break that plate?
I broke the plate.
Hey, let's break them all. How about that? You're not his mother. Get over here. You want to iron like a woman? Let me show you how to iron like a woman.
We are then introduced to another version of Carl, the current form of Carl before he fell into a coma. This version of him explains in more detail some specifics about his early life. More specifically, when he was baptized. He was held underwater for way too long. He was drowning, and everyone just watched. And this would be the first time that Carl would ever hear that evil inner voice. It comforted him in a time where no one was listening to him. Catherine tries to level with the innocent side of Carl's mind, but the murderous other side of his mind takes control.
Carl, where is Julia Hickson?
No names. You know who I am?
Catherine is attacked, captured, and enslaved. She's now trapped in this dark and twisted hellscape. The doctors monitoring her now realize that she has gone way too deep and they cannot wake her up.
Miriam. Mm-hmm. That can't be right.
Peter volunteers to enter Carl's mind so he can try to rescue her, but as soon as he enters, he is also captured by Carl's murderous half. Now this scene is really fucked up. Very well done. So at this point, Peter's tied up. Each arm is tied, each leg is tied. He can't move. This evil version of Carl is just watching over him as he screams, and Catherine is still captured. She's just sitting in the corner watching everything. At this point, Carl takes a pair of scissors and stabs it ever so slowly into Peter's lower abs, and he just reaches in there, feeling around, enjoying every second of it. At this point, he reaches in and grabs what looks like to be Peter's small intestine, pulls it out ever so slowly, and above Peter is this bar with some barbs on it. So Carl takes his small intestine, wraps it around the spikes, and starts turning the edges like a music box as it slowly starts twisting, pulling out Peter's intestines.
And little lambs eat ivy.
The scene is very well done. Peter tries to scream, but just like in any nightmare that we've all had, it's just so quiet. His screams can't reach anybody. And yeah, Carl is just enjoying every second of it. Now at this point, Peter is able to remind Catherine that she is dreaming, which frees her from Carl's control. Peter reminds her that her brother died after being in a coma for 6 months.
Your baby brother had a car accident! He was in a coma for 6 months before he died!
This memory was powerful enough to reawaken her awareness, and then she gains back control, at which point she takes a stake and stabs it through Carl's back. And they both escape. Now at this point, Peter and Catherine teleport to a different room, and this room has all of his victims inside of cubes with water just swimming like mermaids. And now Catherine is trying to comfort the boy version of Carl.
Don't be scared. I would never hurt you.
But then all of a sudden, Peter finds the clue that they've been looking for. It's the symbol they found on that hoist machine. And now Peter drags Catherine away while she's trying to help the boy version of Carl. As she's being pulled away, Carl is backing up into a corner. But in the corner is the older, evil version of Carl. That hops over and grabs boy Carl. But now as soon as this happens, they both wake up. They are both awakened from the session. Peter luckily was able to remember the symbol from the dream, a symbol that was located on a specialized piece of equipment that leads them to an isolated area where Carl has built his secret underground room where Julia is trapped. Peter's team discovers that after the hoist's previous owner went bankrupt, the government hired Carl to seal up the property. They make their way over to that location, and Peter finds Julia just in time to save her life. So there was a section earlier where the room was filling up with water, and the water was probably up to her knees in this scene, and she's looking for ways to escape. She manages to look up and sees a pipe and starts yanking at that, breaking it off. So when Peter finds her, the room is filled with water, but she's up in the corner with that pipe in her mouth, still able to get oxygen and still alive. Like he just barely made it. Now, while that's happening, Catherine decides to lock everyone out of the room and reverse the feed.
Catherine? Catherine? Open this door.
So this whole time, Catherine was entering Carl's mind, but reversing the feed means Carl entering Catherine's mind, so she can try to help the innocent part of him. She brings Carl's inner child to this beautiful paradise. Carl proceeds to tell her about an injured bird that he found. Carl says that he wanted to try to nurse this bird back to health, but then quickly realized that if his father found the bird, he would do something absolutely horrible. So in an attempt to save this bird's life, Carl drowns the bird. In his mind, he was saving this bird. He's also trying to tell Catherine to save him. But all of a sudden, Carl's sick and twisted side enters the scene. He's literally always present and manifests right in front of them. This is like a new serpent version of himself with like scales all over his head. Very well done part. Now that I'm watching this movie again, I realize the amount of religious symbolism here. Luckily, this is Catherine's mind, and she has all the power. She manages to injure this new serpent version of Carl with a crossbow and proceeds to beat the ever-living shit out of him. When Carl enters the scene, he emerges from the pool with a big cape behind him, and he throws off the cape. And you can see all the scales running down his neck, and he has both of his nipples pierced with like a bar connecting them. Now at this point, after Catherine shoots him, gets on top of him and starts beating the shit out of him, she grabs the bar that is attached to his nipple piercings and rips them off. And you see the whole thing. I used to have my nipples pierced, and watching that scene hurt. She then stabs him in the stomach with a sword, and the evil version of Carl delivers this creepy ass line.
It's not real. You cannot kill me.
Very well done, though. Very well done. But unfortunately, she comes to learn that everything she's doing to the serpent version of Carl, she's also doing to the boy version of Carl. Catherine remembers what Carl was telling her about the bird, and she decides to take the child version of him, bring him to the pool, and proceeds to drown him. This is the only way to kill his evil side. This was her saving Carl's innocent side. He died peacefully in this beautiful dream world that Catherine created just for him. And just like that, Carl stopped breathing. We get a glimpse of Catherine holding Carl's body in the pool. Then we transition right over to Peter holding Julia as she has just been saved. I really do enjoy the contrast in that little section. One life lost, one life saved. So now that this technology has helped save someone's life, it gains a new form of credibility. And now they're actually able to reverse the feed, doing therapy sessions inside of Catherine's mind instead of Catherine entering the mind of her patients. The movie ends with Catherine and Edward entering a therapy session, but this time in Catherine's mind. And that's it. That's the movie. Ooh. I got cold. So yeah, that is the movie. Is it as good as I remember? Yes, it's even better than I remember, to be completely honest. So I googled the movie after I watched it, and it doesn't have that good of ratings. People didn't really like this movie. I guess you could consider this movie kind of artsy. It's all over the place, but it takes place in a serial killer's dream. Like, what the fuck do you expect? I thought this movie was a lot longer than it actually is. It's like an hour and 47 minutes, something like that. But yeah, the characters are just so good. J-Lo is fucking amazing. Vince Vaughn is really good too. He gets cheesy at some points, but like, pretty good. And also, Wilson Fisk from Daredevil, he does a great job portraying this character, both being Carl in the waking world and also the adult version of Carl in the dreams. So this cast actually goes pretty hard. We got Hank Schrader from Breaking Bad, and one of the doctors at the facility is Dr. Curtis Connors from Spider-Man. And we can't forget Musetta Vander, who was in Mortal Kombat Annihilation and delivered one of the best lines in cinematic history.
Brother, you're alive. Too bad you will die.
One of the worst lines, but the one scene that really got me and that made me think that this is a really good movie was the closet scene. That whole abuse section. Now don't get me wrong, it's very heavy, extremely heavy, but it was just done so well. Like, I'm sitting there, I'm watching it, and I'm like, holy fuck. This is horrible. This is insane. Yeah, I will say one thing that threw me off, though, was at the end, when Carl is talking to Catherine in Catherine's dream, before they start talking about the bird. You get these weird visuals around the corners of the screen, and that was a little too cheesy for me. Just a little bit, right? But the movie is so good that I can let that slide. It's also a bit of a pet peeve when movies will make up sicknesses, illnesses for the sake of the plot. Like, I mean, it makes sense, of course. I know that's a me issue, but I just think it flows better for the sake of the story if we just try to bring some real world scientific evidence into the movie instead of changing things around for the movie. But that's a me thing. That's totally a me thing. I don't write movies, so what the fuck am I talking about? So yeah, is it as good as I remember? It is better than I remember, actually. So good that I think I might want to watch it a second time. Also, I could be wrong with this, but when Peter and Catherine are together after the intestine scene, and Peter sees the symbols on the tanks, couldn't he have just like asked for that same information when they first saw the symbols when they were in the killer's home in the beginning of the movie? I could be wrong, because they walked into the house and they go to the basement and they see the big hoist contraption and the symbol is on it, and then he sees the symbol again in the dream and is like, oh. And then they find the information about that company, and boom, that location is where Julia is. Once again, I know I could be wrong, but it just seemed a little strange. But even so, I will let that slide, because the dream sequences, especially in the beginning, when Catherine first enters the dream, it's done so well. The horse scene when she first enters Carl's mind, oh, so good, so good. Also, when she pulls the lever on the wall and the glass drops, and you can see all of Carl's victims done up like dolls. Very, very good scene. Okay, so like usual, I am just rambling, but that's okay. That's why we're all here, right? This is a very, very good movie, and I do recommend that you watch it. I will warn you, though, there is a lot of abuse, so just keep that in mind before you watch it. Oh, goddamn. So good. So good. We're still recording? Honestly, this movie gets a solid 9.5 out of 10. Everything is there. Everything is there. There's just that cheesiness at the end in Catherine's mind with the corner effects on the screen. Like, I get it. It's a dream sequence, but it didn't do it for me. And I guess the that issue with the symbol and not just doing the research into that symbol in the first place. But even so, 9.5 out of 10 for me. You go watch it, you make your own rating, and you tell me what you think about it. This is a movie that I do think everybody needs to see. Came out in 2000. People fucking hated it, but I think right now it actually has like a pretty intense cult following. So do with that information what you will. But that's going to be it for today. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I really hope you all actually watch this movie. And I will see you all in the next one.